I had two more questions that I really wanted to ask you. The first one was kind of the future after Brexit. We obviously had Donald Trump here recently saying the UK-US trade deal probably wasn't going to happen with the Chequers deal that's on the table. Obviously, then he gave the press conference and said the complete opposite pretty much. Where do you stand on that? Do you think the UK will be able to get a trade deal with the US post-Brexit if the Chequers deal was the one that we end up with?
Well, we don't know how long Donald Trump is going to be president, but trade deals with the US are extremely difficult because they have to get congressional approval, and there are very, very protectionist pressures in the American agricultural industry and also in their steel. For example, we've just had all these sanctions that Trump has imposed on the EU and on China. I think the idea that we would have a great free trade deal with the US is always a fantasy, and frankly we need the strength of collective 500 million weight to stand up to the US if it's trying to bully us in international trade.
I think, well, yeah, just send Farage over there to negotiate it. You know, he was the first British leader to go over there and negotiate it. And I think that you can't preempt what Donald Trump does next. He's a unique leader that we've not seen the likes of before. I think there's a very good chance we could see him winning a second term. The Democrats are all over the place, and they just don't know how to fight him. You know, for all of the talk of the European economy, the American economy is going great guns. So you never know what's going to happen with the next election. Do you want a trade deal? Do you want a free trade deal? At least we'll be able to create a trade deal outside the European Union, because we'll have people that are accountable to Parliament and the British people being able to do it instead of the Commission.
But the Commission has to get its proposals agreed by the Council of Ministers, where elected ministers are present, and then the European Parliament also has a role within the political processes, and we have at the moment elected members of the European Parliament.
We do.
Indeed.
I'm one of them.
Exactly. And therefore the idea that it's all done by bureaucrats and there is no political accountability is not true.
And the fact is that we have very few, we have about 12% of the MEPs in the European Parliament, and so all of them could vote for an agreement, and still the agreement could be turfed out by the European Parliament. The fact is, if you want British Parliament to decide to have the final say, the only way we could do that is outside the European Union. But that was decided in 2016
You either get a collective deal where you've got more influence, or you could have a bilateral deal, but you'd probably be in a weaker negotiating position.
And the people made their decision.
No, the decision is not the final.
Day, June the 23rd.
We are still in the process of dealing with it. We are going to carry on this parliamentary scrutiny of it, and Parliament has to decide with the meaningful vote this autumn where we take it from there.
So all the power you've got, all the power as a parliamentarian, all the power you've got, don't you want to extend that? Where we can actually decide all of our laws? Why do you want to be subservient to another institution? The people voted for you in Ilford South. They've been doing it for over 25 years, you told me. They want you to be the guardian of their interests, not to cede power to commissioners and European parliamentarians.
The reality is, in the real world, we have to work with others on environmental protection.
That word, compromise.
We have to work collectively on issues to do with
managing
peace
decline
and security. We have the European arrest warrant and the extradition arrangements.
So you'd have us in the Euro then?
We made a decision in this country not to join the Euro. We are not in Schengen
there was no referendum.
And
you have us in that
our elected Parliament has made that decision. And the reality is, we have the best possible deal at the moment in terms of our relationship with our European partners, and we are about to put it all in jeopardy by crashing out with no deal if you get your way, which will be an economic and political disaster.
So would you have us in the Euro?
No, the people...
You wouldn't vote to join the Euro?
No.
Excellent. Would you vote to be in Schengen?
No, because
there'll be queues at Dover. Mike Gabe's plan to leave the EU.
It's not true.
We're winning him over.
We are not in Schengen at the moment, and we still have passports and checks when people come to this country.
But the sky hasn't fallen in. Remarkable.
We also have cooperation with France at the moment.
Bilaterally.
Yes.
That important word, bilaterally.
And with the Netherlands, but that is part of our being in in the EU,
Nothing
and there
to
is
do
no
with it.
guarantee that those arrangements will continue in the future.
God, this is remarkable. It's like we've got to apologise for our portfolio of power, that we can't do anything. It's like the old politics of managing decline. You know, it's Great Britain. The clue is in the name, Mike. Let's live up to it. Let's stop thinking that we're going down the pan, that we've got to be allied to this, that and the other. You know, we can make deals and negotiate with whoever we want as an independent country, and always remember that strength comes from the British people, and they're our masters.
And
they tell us what to do.
Democratic institutions,
52% told us what to do.
Institutions and our ability to compromise and work together and
Give
build
away,
unity
capitulate.
and with other people, and not to polarise by taking a narrow-minded nationalist view.
Can I ask you, obviously, on what do you think is going to happen? Not what you want to happen. What do you think is going to happen the day after the 2-year time clock is up?
Well, I'll go down the pub, celebrate.
But do you think
It'll be a glorious day.
Do you think we'll still be in negotiations, or do you think it will go to a no deal? There will be the transition period.
There will be no deal. We will leave. The European Union doesn't want to cede any ground. The complexities of who has to agree what, and so on, mean that no deal has always been on the cards, and it's a shame that none of the players at the top have been honest enough to talk about it or make plans for it, which has been very dishonest and unprofessional. I think trade will continue. We have a massive trade position with the European Union. They sell to us much more than we sell to them, so the economic realities mean that things will continue. All of this scare stories are politically motivated because it is a project. It's a project to create a one-state European Union. If they're allowed to get their way, we will be in the euro, because Brussels will know it can get what it wants. We will be in Schengen. Our immigration statistics are already ridiculously high. Well, that's going to be easy street. Wait until we are in Schengen. It can get a lot worse. So if anyone is thinking about, oh well, maybe they're right, it can get a hell of a lot worse. We can be Great Britain, or we can be Greece, a version of Greece, which we will be, because they will take us in the euro. We will be pegged to it. We're their cash cow. They don't want us to leave because they can fleece us for whatever they can get out of it. 52% can't be wrong. Just get on with it. I got into this, into politics because I wanted to get Britain out of the European Union. But this constant merry-go-round now, just get on with it. We don't need to go over the arguments beforehand, because there was a referendum. We've had many European elections which played out the same arguments, and so on and so forth. 52%, the highest mandate anything has ever got, bigger than any Labour victory, bigger than any Conservative victory that we've had. To call that referendum illegitimate is to say every election success, the successes that Mike has revelled in for the past quarter of a century, to say all of that referendum was illegitimate is to cast down every election we've had since the formation of our glorious democracy. And we're not going to do that, are we, Mike?
Right, now, to answer your question, you asked
I appreciate that. What will happen the day after?
What I thought would happen? I believe, even though I'm very worried that there will be no deal, I suspect there will be some kind of deal, but it will include, and this has already been flagged up, a transition period which goes to the end of 2020, and it's now clear other transition periods on certain other areas which go to 22 or 23. So it's quite a long process of the actual withdrawal. Although we will formally be out of the European Union unless they decide to extend Article 50, which is also possible, in the end of March next year, we will still be bound by the customs union and the single market and the in adjudication issues, European Court of Justice, for some time after that, and there will be a long transition. I suspect some of these difficult issues, like the Northern Ireland border and some of the other questions, may still not be resolved even by the final deal, in which case the transition will be almost indefinite, and it could take 2, 3, 4, 5 years, maybe even longer, to get a final agreement. So my view is what I'd want to happen is that the people would have a referendum to decide whether they accepted the terms. If that's not possible, then Parliament has got to do it itself. But we will, I think, be in a long transition period to make it as smooth as possible, so we don't go off the cliff and we don't then have the terrible economic impact that would have.
Just finally, a final question before we end this segment and we end your time on the show, both of you. Do you think there's any way that the country can be brought together, the 48 and 52% of people in the referendum? Do you think there's any way that all of them are going to be satisfied and have faith in the political system ever again?
I think when it's done and dusted, it will go back to Reds versus Blues and go back to politics as normal. You know, this has been an extraordinary period in British politics. It has been the nastiest period in British politics, I'm sad to say. And I hope everything calms down and then we look at the opportunities we can have. It's going to be a very tasty general election with what comes next, with Mr Corbyn, you know, knocking on Downing Street. If Mike and his colleagues haven't got rid of him by then, but maybe he might want to shed some light on that before the show ends. So there's interesting things coming down the road, but you know, from my perspective, this was settled 2 years ago. The anti-democrats in Parliament are just stringing this out because they don't like the result, and they want to keep people voting until they get the right result, which is in step with the European Union's behaviour. Look at the referendums in Ireland. You'll keep voting until you get the result we want. Just get it out of the way, get it sorted, and then get on with the business of governing. But I think this has cast a long shadow over future referendums in this country. I don't think we'll be seeing many more of them to come, I'm sad to say.
I think the referendum and the subsequent chaotic outcome of the process that we've gone through is changing British politics. I don't believe that we will go back to politics as it was. I think there is a real possibility of political realignments of some kind and splits within both the main parties. And I also think that it's impossible to predict the outcome of this. The old tribal certainties have gone. Many people who voted Conservative did so because they were leavers, but the substantial body were also Remainers. Vice versa for the Labour side, the majority of Labour voters at the last general election were Remain, but a minority were Leave. But I think this issue is changing relationships, and there is clearly a lot of unresolved issues about where our country stands, our relationship with the European Union in the future, and also what kind of country we are. Are we a country that's inward looking and narrow and wants to keep people out, or are we a country that, as it has been for centuries, is an outgoing country which has an interest in what's going on in the European landmass next to us and wants to try and have a relationship as close as we can? But the big uncertainties in all of this is what Putin's doing, what Trump's doing, and the threats to our values, our democratic values from elsewhere in the world. And this is the worst possible time to be leaving the European Union. So I'm really not sure where it's going to lead, but I don't think that politics and political parties' alignments are going to be the same as they were.
Fantastic. Tim Aker, Mike Gapes, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I don't know if we've made your mind up one way or the other. I think the only thing we can guarantee is that Brexit means Brexit, unless it doesn't.
Unless Theresa May's saying it.